You know, I was thinking about something on the way into the studio today. We spend our entire lives doing this one specific thing. We do it when we're happy. We do it when we're nervous. Sometimes we even do it when we're absolutely terrified.
Okay, I'm trying to guess. Is it breathing?
No. Well, yes, hopefully. We're all doing that. But I'm talking about laughing.
Oh, okay.
It's this involuntary, convulsing, respiratory reaction. You make these, weird barking noises. Your face gets red. Your eyes might even water. And if you actually stop and look at it like an alien would, it makes absolutely no sense.
It really doesn't. If you saw an animal in the wild baring its teeth and convulsing like that, you'd assume it was choking or dying.
Right.
You certainly wouldn't think, oh, they're having a great time.
Exactly. And yet it's arguably the thing that makes us most human. It's the universal language, right? But here's the problem that has bugged me for years. We have no idea how it works.
Or why it works.
Right. Why is a guy slipping on a banana peel funny, but a guy slipping on a patch of ice and breaking his hip is tragic? Why can I joke about my own misery, but if you joke about it, I want to punch you in the face?
It's the ultimate subjective experience.
Yeah.
Which, makes it a nightmare for science.
Oh, totally.
How do you measure a chuckle versus a guffaw in a lab setting without just killing the mood entirely?
Well, that didn't stop two guys from trying to crack the code. Today, for this deep dive, we are unpacking The Humor Code by Peter McGraw and Joel Warner.
And this is not your typical, here's a bunch of jokes kind of book.
No, not at all. And I want to be clear right off the top, this isn't just them sitting in an office. This is a global expedition.
It really is. It's a bit of a buddy comedy setup in itself, actually.
Yeah.
You've got Peter McGraw. He's the academic.
The scientist.
Yeah, a professor at the University of Colorado, super analytical, obsessed with data. He actually runs something called the Humor Research Lab.
Which unfortunately creates the acronym HURL.
It does. HURL. You can't make that up. So he's the brains, the guy in the lab coat. And then you have Joel Warner, the journalist.
He's the voice.
He's the voice. He's the skeptic tagging along, the one thinking, can you really put laughter into a spreadsheet? And, do we even want to?
And they don't just stay in Colorado. That's what makes this story so good. They realized you can't study humor in a vacuum. You can't just show undergraduates clips of Seinfeld and call it a day.
Yeah.
So they packed their bags and went to the extremes. They went to the places where humor shouldn't exist or where it looks completely alien to us.
We're talking about the comedy underground of Osaka, Japan. The political minefields of the West Bank.
The dark, stoic winters of Scandinavia.
And even the Amazon jungle, of all places.
They were chasing a unified theory of funny. A grand theory for what makes us laugh.
Which brings us to the core concept. Before we, get on the plane with them to Japan, we have to understand the theory they were testing. It's the engine of the whole book.
Right.
It's called the Benign Violation Theory, or BVT for short.
Okay, let's unpack BVT, but don't give me the textbook definition yet. Give me the real-world example so I can really visualize it.
The best way to explain it is actually through tickling.
Tickling. Okay, I'm listening.
Think about it. If you try to tickle yourself, what happens?
Nothing. I look like an idiot, but I don't laugh.
Right, because there's no threat. There's no surprise. It's purely benign. It's just you touching yourself.
I'm 9. Okay.
Now, imagine you're walking home alone at night, and a complete stranger jumps out of the bushes and tries to tickle your ribs.
I'm screaming. I'm calling the police. That's an assault. That's not funny.
Exactly. That is a pure violation. It's physical. It's unwanted. It's scary. You are not laughing at all.
No.
But what if a friend, someone you trust, jumps out and tickles you?
I laugh. I push them away. I might tell them to stop, but I'm laughing while I'm doing it.
That is the sweet spot. That is BVT, the physical attack, the unwanted touch. That's the violation. But the fact that it's your friend and you know they aren't actually trying to hurt you, that makes it benign.
So it's two things happening at once.
Your brain is processing two completely contradictory signals at the same time. This is a threat and this is safe. And that confusion, that little spark of cognitive dissonance, that, the theory says, creates the spark we call humor.
So the idea is that every joke, every funny moment in human history sits at this intersection. It has to be wrong enough to get your attention, but safe enough that you don't feel actual danger.
That's the hypothesis. It's a Venn diagram. If it's too benign, it's just boring. Nothing happens.
Like me tickling myself.
Exactly. If it's too much of a violation, it's tragic or offensive, like the stranger in the bushes. Humor lives right in that little sliver of overlap.
So the mission of the Humor Code was to take this academic theory, which looks great on a whiteboard in Colorado, and see if it holds up in the real world. Can it explain why Japanese game shows look like, well, torture?
Can it explain why people joke during a revolution, or why a cartoon can cause an international incident?
Precisely. They wanted to see if there is a universal DNA of humor that transcends borders.
Which is a huge question.
A massive one. Well, let's start where they started their international leg. Section 1, Japan. And talk about a place that tests the lost in translation concept right out of the gate.
Japan is such a fascinating case study because it is often described as a high-context culture, which is a sociological way of saying you have to be there to get it.
Right. There's a lot of assumed knowledge.
And for two outsiders landing in Osaka, the culture shock was immediate.
Yeah, the source material describes their arrival in Osaka as this intense assault on the senses. They describe the contrast between the quiet, incredibly orderly trains where nobody speaks, it's just total silence.
And then you step out into the chaotic neon nightlife of a district like Dotonbori. It's sensory overload.
And right off the bat, they try to consume Japanese comedy. They go to a rakugo performance.
Right. Rakugo is this very, very traditional form of comedic storytelling. And when I say traditional, I mean it dates back hundreds of years.
So it's not like stand-up.
Not at all. It's a lone performer sitting on a cushion, a zabuton, and he's playing multiple characters.
Just one guy.
Just one guy. He has a paper fan and a small hand towel. That's it. Those are his only props. And he creates an entire world just by, turning his head slightly or changing the pitch of his voice to switch between a husband and a wife or a shopkeeper and a customer.
Wow. So it's super subtle.
It is the definition of subtle. It's all linguistic and relies heavily on wordplay and cultural references.
And what happened when our two American explorers went to see this master at work, like hours after landing?
They fell asleep.
They literally fell asleep.
Out cold. I mean, jet lag was part of it, for sure.
Yeah.
But the bigger lesson was that humor is incredibly fragile without linguistic access.
Right.
They had a translator whispering in their ears, husband and wife. Now he is talking about noodles. But without the nuance, without the cultural software to decode the violation, there was no humor.
It was just a guy talking.
It was just a guy talking about noodles.
It's like trying to explain a meme to your grandmother. If you don't have the context, the years of internet culture that make the image funny, it just looks like nonsense.
It's the perfect analogy. The benign part was there. They were safe in a theater. But the violation part, the twist in the story, the clever wordplay, it was completely invisible to them. So they learned lesson 1 the hard way. Language matters. A lot.
But they also discovered pretty quickly that Japan isn't a monolith. There are really two Japans when it comes to attitude to culture. You have Tokyo and you have Osaka.
And this is a crucial distinction for understanding their comedy. Tokyo is described in the book as the rigid, methodical head of Japan. The brain.
Orderly.
Very.
Oh.
The authors tell this funny story about their hotel concierge in Tokyo who wouldn't leave their room until he had explained every single light switch and handed them a binder of instructions for the room.
A binder for the room. That feels very safe. Very benign.
Extremely benign, safe, orderly, controlled. That's Tokyo's vibe. But Osaka is the belly.
The belly.
Yeah, the gut. Historically, it was the merchant city. The samurai, who had these strict codes of honor where laughing at the wrong time could literally get you killed, or at least dishonored, they mostly avoided Osaka.
So the merchants were just left alone to haggle, to banter, to hustle.
Exactly. And that environment, that's where a culture of comedy could actually flourish. If you're selling fish, you need to be quick-witted. You need to charm people. You need to have good banter.
You're performing all day long.
You are. So Osaka became the comedy capital of Japan. It's the home of manzai.
Okay, explain manzai for us. Because if rakugo is the quiet, intellectual side, manzai sounds like the complete opposite.
Oh, it is. Think of it as a double act, like Abbott and Costello, but on double speed and with a lot more physical contact.
Physical contact.
Yeah. You have the Sukomi, who is the straight man, and the Book, who is the funny man or the fool. And it's incredibly fast-paced, often aggressive, lots of misunderstandings.
And you mentioned slapping, like actual slapping.
Oh, yeah. The Tsukomi will frequently slap the Book on the head with a paper fan, or sometimes just his hand when he says something stupid. It's a standard part of the act.
That seems so wild for a culture that we perceive as so polite, where people bow to each other.
But that's exactly why it works. BVT explains this perfectly. In a society where physical touch is generally taboo, and politeness is absolutely mandatory, seeing two guys on stage slapping each other and screaming is a massive violation.
It's breaking all the rules.
All of them. But because it's on a stage and it's a tradition, it's benign. It provides this incredible release valve for all that pent-up social pressure.
It's the one place where you're allowed to be rude.
Exactly. And it's not just some folk tradition, it's a massive industry. The authors visit this company called Yoshimoto Kogyo, and company feels like a huge understatement.
Industrial complex is probably better.
That's what it is. Yoshimoto Kogyo is the empire of Japanese comedy. They own the talent, the theaters, the TV shows, and get this, even the schools where they train comedians.
The authors visited the new Star Creation School.
Which sounds like a factory, doesn't it?
It basically is. Students pay about $5,000 for a year-long course. They learn comedy, but they also learn, like, kung fu and dance.
It's a whole performance boot camp.
It is. But the statistic that stood out to me was the success rate.
It's absolutely brutal. Only about 3% of the graduates actually go on to make a living in comedy.
3%.
It highlights how competitive and incredibly structured the environment is. But here is the paradox. Yoshimoto is huge in Japan, like a cultural behemoth, but they're almost unknown globally. The CEO calls it the Galapagos Island effect.
Because the species developed in complete isolation.
Right. Japanese comedy is so high context. It relies so heavily on shared cultural assumptions that only Japanese people have, that it doesn't export well. It evolves on its own island. It's perfectly adapted for Japan and completely confusing for everyone else.
Well, speaking of things that don't export well, we have to talk about the game show.
Oh, the game show?
The authors visit the set of a variety show called Power Purin, and specifically a segment called Ogata Impossible.
This is where the benign violation theory really gets tested to its limit. The premise sounds simple. A comedian, Ogata, is trying to eat a bowl of noodles.
Sounds simple enough, maybe a little messy, but fine.
But he is being blasted by a jet engine wind machine.
A jet engine? Are you serious?
Yes, a massive industrial fan that sounds and acts like a jet engine. The authors describe standing on the side of the stage, and the wind is so strong it's literally tearing the skin on Ogata's face back. His lips are slapping like rubber. He's choking on broth. He's gagging. He's struggling to breathe.
That sounds awful. That doesn't sound funny. It sounds like torture.
To a Western observer, or anyone outside that context, it looks exactly like torture. It is a pure violation. The authors were actually uncomfortable. They were worried he was going to get seriously hurt.
So why on earth was the Japanese audience laughing hysterically?
Because for them, the benign frame was perfectly intact. They knew Ogata. They knew he was a professional reaction comedian, that this was his whole job. They knew the safety protocols of the show. They knew it was a game.
So they were in on the joke.
They were in on the joke. They could enjoy the violation because the context made it safe for them.
It's amazing how fragile that frame is. If you showed that clip to someone in America with no context, they'd think it was a snuff film. But in Osaka, it's prime-time entertainment.
It's all about that shared understanding.
So if high-context comedy like Rakugo or these, very specific game shows don't translate, did they find anything that did? Did they find a joke that worked across the cultural divide?
They did. And of all places, they found it in the smallest bar in the world, in Dotonbori, the nightlife district of Osaka.
This is one of my favorite scenes in the book. They are crammed into this tiny space with a bunch of locals. They don't speak Japanese. The locals don't speak English. It's just awkward silence.
Total crickets. And yet, within an hour, they end up roaring with laughter together. And the question is why?
How did they bridge that gap?
They defaulted to the lowest common denominator, the absolute basics of human experience. Drunkenness, physical comedy, and, to be blunt, dirty jokes.
The universal language of dick jokes.
Essentially, yes. One of the locals made a crude gesture, and suddenly everyone understood. The violation was clear, and the context of the bar made it benign.
So that was the takeaway.
That was the big aha moment in Japan. While complex wit requires a shared culture, primal violations, sex, bodily functions, physical pratfalls are universal. Everyone has a body. Everyone understands the taboo of the bathroom. So when you strip away language, that is what you are left with.
It's a bit humbling, isn't it? We like to think we're so sophisticated, but put us in a room where we can't talk and we revert to 12-year-olds giggling at farts.
Hey, if it works, it works. It just proves the deep biological basis of humor. The violation of the body is something every human understands instinctively.
So Japan showed them that humor is fragile without context, but the physical stuff travels. Now let's move to a place where the vibe is, well, significantly different.
A massive shift in tone.
Section 2, Scandinavia.
Right. They go from the neon chaos of Osaka to the gray, serious, and very orderly landscapes of Denmark and Sweden. And the central question here shifts from what translates to something much darker. Does humor have a dark side?
This is a heavy topic. They land right in the middle of the aftermath of the Muhammad cartoons controversy. For listeners who might need a refresher, this is back in 2005 when the Danish newspaper Jyllands-Posten published 12 cartoons depicting the Prophet Muhammad.
Right. And this just sparked a massive global crisis. I mean, embassies were burned, people were killed in riots, diplomatic relations were completely severed. It was arguably the biggest humor scandal in modern history.
So how do you apply the benign violation theory to an international geopolitical crisis? Because clearly for millions and millions of people, this wasn't funny in the slightest.
It actually explains the disconnect perfectly.
Yeah.
Think about it from the perspective of the newspaper editors and the cartoonists. For them, publishing these drawings was a statement on self-censorship and free speech.
A political point.
Exactly. It was a political point. In their minds, it was benign because it was just ink on paper, a satirical exercise in a secular democratic country.
They thought, we're just drawing cartoons. It's a debate. What's the big deal?
Right. But for the protesters, for the global religious community that protested, there was absolutely nothing benign about it. It was blasphemy. It was a pure, unmitigated violation of a sacred taboo.
So a pure violation.
And if you have a violation with zero benignity, you don't get laughter. You get anger. You get outrage. You get offense.
The authors actually managed to meet one of the cartoonists, Kurt Westergaard. And the description of this meeting is just surreal. He's living in a fortress, right?
He is. He's protected 247 by the PET, which is the Danish intelligence service. He has guards, fortified windows, the whole 9 yards. And the description in the book is so vivid, they say he looks like Santa Claus in a leather vest.
That is quite a look.
It is. But the reality of his life is just terrifying. He recounts the story of the axe attack.
Oh, man.
An intruder broke into his home with an axe, screaming he was going to kill him. And Westergaard had to hide in a specially built panic room, which is basically a fortified bathroom, while this man tried to chop down the door.
And his granddaughter was with him.
He was clutching his 5-year-old granddaughter the entire time.
That is chilling. That is the potential cost of a joke gone wrong.
And yet, Westergaard refuses to apologize. He's completely unrepentant. He views satire as a clean cut, a necessary way to vent frustration in a society. He stands by the idea that in a free society, you have to be able to mock everything, even the sacred.
This brings up this really interesting idea of in-groups and out-groups. The expert they speak to, a sociologist named Christy Davies, has this theory about the stupidity joke.
It's a fascinating pattern Davies identified. Almost every single culture on Earth has a neighboring group that they mock as stupid.
Right.
Americans used to mock the Poles. The British mock the Irish. In the book, they mentioned that the Tajiks mock the Uzbeks.
It's a universal pattern. And in Scandinavia.
The Danes mock the Swedes. And of course, the Swedes mock the Danes. It's a way of bonding the in-group by othering the out-group.
The joke's logic is, we are smart because they are dumb.
Exactly. It creates solidarity inside the circle. But there's a real danger there, right? It's not just harmless fun.
Which is where the rubber band theory comes in.
Right. Imagine that social norms are a rubber band. When you tell derogatory jokes, racist jokes, sexist jokes, jokes that rely on prejudice, you are stretching that rubber band of what is considered acceptable in a society.
You're making it looser. You're normalizing the prejudice.
Exactly. You make prejudice feel more normal, more benign. If you joke about a certain group of people being lesser or dangerous long enough, eventually it stops feeling like a joke. It starts to feel like a fact.
That's the dark side.
That's how propaganda works.
Yeah.
It very often starts as a joke.
And they also visited another artist in Sweden, Lars Vilks, who also drew Muhammad, but this time as a dog on a roundabout.
Another severe violation. And just like Westergaard, he viewed it as an art project, a test of boundaries and freedom of expression. But the cost was his freedom. He was living under constant guard as well.
It really highlights that while humor can be a weapon, it can also blow up in your face. It forces you to ask, is the laugh worth the cost? And who gets to decide?
A question without any easy answer.
Definitely not. Now, speaking of weapons and conflict, let's move to Section 3, Palestine. This was the part of the journey where I think a lot of people, including their friends, told them, you are crazy, you're going to the West Bank to find comedy.
It seems so counterintuitive. We associate that region with, intifadas, checkpoints, tragedy, conflict. Not exactly a barrel of laughs.
But the authors were looking for something specific. Can humor even survive in a war zone? And if it does, what does that humor look like?
And more than that, what function does it serve? They meet with this professor, Sharif Kanana, who has spent his life collecting Palestinian jokes, and he talks about the humor curve. This was a really insightful part of the book for me.
It's brilliant.
It is. Cannon noticed that the type of joke people tell changes directly based on the political morale of the population.
So it's like a thermometer for the public mood.
Exactly. He said that during the first Intifada, back in the late 80s, when there was a sense of uprising and agency and hope, the jokes were empowering. They were all about clever Palestinian street kids outsmarting heavily armed, clueless Israeli soldiers.
So high morale equals we are winning jokes. We are smart, they are dumb.
Right. The classic in-group, out-group joke structure. But then, when the morale drops, when the situation stagnates and the peace process fails, the jokes turn dark.
How so?
They become cynical, hopeless. They start making fun of their own leaders, their own incompetence. The humor turns inward and becomes a tool for expressing despair.
And what did he say about the state of things during their visit?
He said there was a lack of new jokes, which he saw as a very bad sign.
Why?
Because it meant people couldn't see a vision for the future. The stagnation had become so complete that it had killed the creative spirit needed to even invent a joke.
Wow. But they did find satire on TV. They talk about this show, Watan ala Wahar, which means homeland on a string.
Think of it as the Palestinian Saturday Night Live, but with much, much higher stakes.
And they mocked everyone.
Everyone. They mocked Israeli soldiers, yes, but they also relentlessly mocked their own leaders, the Palestinian Authority, President Abbas, Hamas, the disorganized and often corrupt police. No one was safe.
And that's risky. In that part of the world, mocking your own leadership isn't just edgy, it can be genuinely dangerous.
Extremely. The actors and writers faced death threats, lawsuits, and intense social backlash. But the show served as a critical safety valve. It allowed the populace to laugh at the absurdity of their situation, which is a classic coping mechanism.
If you can laugh at the chaotic police force, they seem a little less terrifying.
Exactly. It's a way of reclaiming a tiny bit of power.
They also traveled to Jenin, to the Freedom Theater. This is a tragic story. It was founded by this incredible figure, Giuliano Mercamis, to use art as a form of resistance, and he was murdered.
Yeah, likely by extremists within his own community who didn't like his secular progressive message. But the show goes on, and the authors hear about this prank that the theater members played on a new volunteer.
The gun-to-the-head prank?
Yeah. This one really tests the limits of my own sense of humor. I'm not sure I get it.
Explain it. It's pretty extreme.
So a former militant, a guy named Zakaria Zubidi, who is a famous figure there, he pretends to be an Israeli soldier. He bursts in, grabs a volunteer, puts a gun to his head, and threatens to kill him.
Like convincingly?
Very convincingly. He drags it out until the guy is absolutely terrified, begging for his life. And then at the last second, everyone reveals, surprise, it's a joke.
That is insane. I would be traumatized for life.
Me too. We need therapy. But this is where BVT gets really interesting. For us, that is a pure violation. But in Jenin, that's the baseline. The benign part of the equation is skewed because their daily reality is so extreme.
So the violation is still huge, but the context of, this is a place I feel safe in, with people I know, makes it barely benign enough to be a joke for them.
It highlights that context dictates everything. If you live with guns in your face as a daily possibility, a gun in your face as a joke is a different psychological event than it is for us. It's like humor is a callus. It toughens you up.
It has to. But they also found a moment of unexpected connection in Hebron. Now, Hebron is described as one of the most tense, divided cities in the West Bank.
It is. You have Israeli settlements built right on top of Palestinian neighborhoods. There are nets over the streets to catch trash and rocks thrown by settlers onto the Palestinian market below. It's a pressure cooker.
And the authors witness an armed Israeli soldier approaching a Palestinian shopkeeper. They tense up. They expect a confrontation.
Of course. That's the script you expect to see play out.
And instead,
they start joking with each other. The shopkeeper threatens to post a photo of the soldier on Facebook and tag Hamas in it. And the soldier laughs and retorts that he'll tag Fatah.
They are joking about the factions in the conflict itself.
They are. And it was a real aha moment for the authors. Even bitter enemies can share a benign violation space when they are forced to live side by side.
The shared context.
Right? The shared context of Facebook, of their daily absurd proximity. It created a bridge, however temporary and fragile. It didn't solve the conflict, not by a long shot, but it diffused the immediate tension.
It's amazing that humor can exist in those tiny cracks. Now let's go from the desert to the jungle. Section 4, the Amazon. And this This is a scene out of a fever dream.
It really is.
Yeah.
They embed themselves with Patch Adams.
The real Patch Adams, the guy from the movie.
The real Dr. Clown, made famous by the Robin Williams movie. They join him and a brigade of 100 clowns flying into the Peruvian Amazon.
The description of the plane ride is just pure chaos. Clowns playing kazoos, bubbles floating through the cabin, people in oversized shoes on a rattling cargo plane.
It's a circus at 30,000 feet. And their destination is Iquitos and Belén, which is essentially a floating slum.
So we're talking extreme poverty, disease, really tough conditions. And the question here is a famous one. Is laughter the best medicine?
We hear that phrase all the time, laughter is the best medicine. It's on greeting cards everywhere.
It feels true.
It does. And there's a famous myth about a guy named Norman Cousins, who in the 70s claimed he cured his own degenerative disease ankylosing spondylitis. By watching Marx Brothers movies and taking massive doses of vitamin C, he wrote a book about it, and the idea just exploded.
But what does the actual science say? Because McGraw is a scientist, not a greeting card writer.
Well, the authors cite the Hundi T2 study. This was a massive long-term study in Norway involving tens of thousands of people over many years, and it showed nothing.
Nothing.
Zero correlation between a person's sense of humor
Yeah.
and their objective physical health or how long they lived.
So laughter doesn't actually cure cancer? It doesn't knit bones back together?
No, it doesn't fix a broken leg. It isn't medicine in the biological, scientific sense. If you have a serious infection, you need antibiotics, not a knock-knock joke.
That's a bit of a bummer.
It is if you take the phrase literally. But, and this is a really big but, they didn't dismiss the clowns as useless. Far from it.
Right, because they saw the effect in the room. They saw what happened when the clowns went into the hospitals and slums.
Exactly. They observed something profound. The clowns weren't curing diseases, but they were absolutely changing the emotional state of the room.
It's the coping mechanism again, isn't it?
It is. Let's apply the benign violation theory. Poverty, sickness, a grim, sterile hospital room, those are serious violations. They are threats to your well-being.
Totally.
The clowns come in with their red noses and their silly antics. They disrupt that violation with play, with absurdity. They introduce a benign element into a world that is full of violations.
It creates a holiday from the pain, as the book says.
That is a beautiful way to put it. It gives people a moment of relief. It aids mental health, resilience, and social connection. And that has enormous value, even if it doesn't shrink a tumor.
There are secondary effects, of course. If you are happier, if your mood is lifted, you might comply with your treatment better, you might sleep better, your stress hormones might go down. So there is a real benefit.
There is a heartbreaking irony in this section of the book, though. While Peter McGraw, the humor scientist, is in the Amazon wearing a clown nose, trying to understand laughter, he gets news from home.
Yeah, his mother passed away.
So here he is, the humor scientist, dealing with the most profound grief imaginable, while literally being surrounded by clowns who are, incidentally, getting scabies from the conditions in the slum.
It's such a stark reminder of the limits of humor, but also its absolute necessity. He couldn't laugh his mother back to life. Humor couldn't cure the violation of death.
No.
But he had to use humor to process that grief. It wasn't a cure for the death, but it was a way to survive the pain of it. It allowed him to keep functioning in an impossible situation.
So we've been to the neon streets of Osaka, the bunkers of Denmark, the checkpoints of Palestine, and the slums of Peru. It's been a wild ride. Now we head to the final showdown, Section 5, Montreal. The Just for Laughs Festival, this is the mecca of comedy. It's the biggest, most important comedy event in the world.
And the challenge here is that Peter McGraw, the academic who has been studying this theory for years, has to actually get on stage and perform stand-up comedy.
It is the ultimate put your money where your mouth is moment. Can the theory actually generate comedy? Or is it just good for analyzing it after the fact, in hindsight?
He calls his routine dissecting the frog.
Which is a perfect callback to that E.B. White quote we've talked about, that analyzing humor is like dissecting a frog. Few people are interested, and the frog dies of it.
He's leaning right into his identity as the boring scientist.
Readily owning it. And he tries to weave in the lessons from the global journey into his set.
How does he do that?
Well, he uses the finger gun joke, which he learned was a bit of universal physical humor in Japan. He talks about the risk of failure, the tension he learned about in Scandinavia. And he uses self-deprecation, which he picked up on in Palestine. He mocks his own sweater vest to disarm the audience and make himself benign.
It's like a greatest hits album of the entire trip, but in a stand-up routine. And the main punchline of his set, he sets up that E.B. White quote again. Nobody likes magic tricks once they know the secret.
And his counterargument, his big punchline is, wrong. Nobody likes magic.
It's a good line, it's cynical, it's dry, and it fits his persona perfectly.
It is. It's academic, but it's actually funny.
So did he kill? Did he get a Netflix special out of it?
He didn't kill in the sense of, a Chris Rock standing ovation, but he didn't bomb. Not at all. He got laughs. It worked. And more importantly, the synthesis worked.
The theory held up under pressure.
It did. If you look back at the entire journey, Japan was all about high context violations. Scandinavia was about the violation of social taboos.
Palestine was life-threatening violations made benign by survival instinct.
And the Amazon was tragic violations made benign by the intervention of play. It all fits.
It all comes back to that delicate balance.
That delicate dance between what's safe and what's wrong.
So, let's wrap this up. What is the big takeaway from the humor code? After all that travel, all that risk, what did we learn about the human condition?
I think the core finding, the big one, is that humor is the survival mechanism.
Not just entertainment.
Not just entertainment. It isn't just a way to pass the time. It is fundamentally how we process the world's violations. Threats, confusion, pain, social awkwardness. Humor is the tool we evolved to flip those things on their head and make them benign.
It makes the scary safe.
It makes the scary safe. It makes the tragic bearable. It can even make a stranger into a friend.
And the authors make the point that you don't need to be a professional comedian to use this. This isn't just for people on stage.
Not at all. We are all doing this every single day. Every time you trip on the sidewalk and laugh at yourself, every time you crack a joke to break the tension in a serious meeting, every time you giggle at a funeral because you're nervous and don't know what else to do.
You're balancing the equation.
You are finding that balance. You are turning a violation into something benign just to get through the day.
It really changes how you look at a bad day. Instead of just thinking, this sucks, you can start looking for the angle. Okay, where's the benign part of this? How could this possibly be funny?
And that is a superpower. It really is. It gives you a sense of control over your own reality.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought, something to chew on that builds on this. We've established that humor comes from processing violations, problems, threats, mistakes.
Right. No violation, no humor. That's the core of the theory.
So if we ever achieved a perfect world, a true utopia with no pain, no confusion, no social faux pas, no violations whatsoever, would that world be completely humorless?
That is a profound question. If everything is perfect, nothing is a violation. If nothing is ever wrong, there is nothing to laugh at.
Exactly. So is the price of a funny life having a slightly messed up life?
I think it might be. A perfect world would be incredibly, unbelievably boring. We need the cracks in the pavement, the awkward moments, the mistakes to make the journey interesting.
I think the trade-off is worth it. I'll take the laughter and the mess.
Me too. Any day.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the DNA of humor. Go out there, find your violations, and see if you can make them benign. We'll see you next time.